person here that's dedicated straight for substance abuse treatment. However, the biggest problem is not with the Department of Corrections. The biggest part is with the community. Like you referenced earlier, when individuals come out, they're ostracized, they're stigmatized, and they end up being beat down again once they've served their time. Now the community that wanted DOC to make them different, which they had to make themselves different, but they're coming back different individuals now. And the community says, okay, well, yeah, you're home. What do you want from us? I want a job.
Right.
I want an opportunity to show you that I am no longer the individual who did this back in 2001. I've served my time. If they'll be willing to do anything to stay away from going back to those people, places, and things that got them in that situation to start with. And a lot of times they don't see, that it could happen to me until it happens. And then the question becomes, what's next? But it has to be a bridge built between, the community and the department. So when an individual comes out or goes to a transitional home or whatever, the community has to be more willing to say, we'll give you a chance, rather than saying, well, you're in that transitional house, but it's something you did because of this and this, and point the finger. And as you said, give them their names back, give them their dignity back, and give them a chance while you're doing it.
Exactly. And the other part of that is the mental illness. Oh, boy, because no one can tell me that you're not affected by depression and hearing all the things that you hear that goes on in prison, hearing those doors clang constantly. You're affected. And if you had any type of mental illness that went unaddressed before you went into the system, and now you go to sick call and they say, oh, here, take this medication. But it doesn't mean that they had a proper diagnosis to be on that medication. So there is so much that goes on to a person's psyche, to their mind when they're in prison, that is just totally unbelievable.
Right.
With my own son, I knew that he was going to need counseling when he came home. I mean, you spent 25 years in prison. There's some underlying issues going on there that has affected you with the things that you saw, the things that you heard. One of the things amongst many that Reuben Hurricane Carter told me that I did not know, that my son did not tell me, is the strip search. Your strip search before visit and your strip search after visit.
Your strip search before you go to yard, after you come to yard, every time you enter and exit a part of the facility where once you leave, technically I'll put it like this, once you leave your house, which is your cell, you go from one place to the next and to the next and to the next. And when you come back, got to get strip search. You go to visit, you come back, got to get strip search. Got to make sure that no one has given you or anyone anything to introduce into the facility. You go out to court, you strip search when you get back, and that right there is the first lesson in humility for any man, to have to take off all of their clothes and to submit to that search, and it's something that's very, like I tell the guys now, I say, you learn your first lesson in humility as soon as you heard those words. I need you to take everything off and hand it to me. And then you realize I'm standing here butt naked, and now you want me to bend down, squat, and cough. This is embarrassing, so.
Yes. And when my son, when Reuben Hurricane Carter told me that, and I went back to visit my son, and I said, why do you tell me that? Because then I didn't want to come back to visit ever again if he had to go through that just to come out to see me. That was and I understand it because we warn people when they come into our house. We have to warn because some people come in with stuff they shouldn't be coming in with, and I'm responsible for everybody in that house. So I understand that, and I understand the strip search, but that's humiliating. That's stripping you of all your manhood, of all your dignity, and your womanhood.
On the flip end of that, for those who are incarcerated, to have to submit to that so that they can see mama when everybody else who told them that I got your back and I'm going to hold you down and, I'm going to come visit you and I'm going to call you and I'm going to write you, and they did none of those things.
Yes,
for
I know.
anybody that's coming to visit them, it means the world. So if I had a strip search in order to go see somebody who I know now that I've had time to sit and really think, and I know now who is for me and who just wants to watch and see what happens to me. So for all of those that are for me, that are coming to still support me through all of the things, good or bad, I will. And I've heard guys say, I don't mind going to strip search to see my mom because my mother was always there. She fussed at me when I needed it, even when I didn't want to hear it. But you know what? She keeps coming. She keeps sending those letters. She keeps making sure that I'm okay. So I don't mind. Right. It's only a minute for them to. Now my mother is not bringing me anything to introduce into the facility. We got to do this. Let's get it done so I can go and have my visit.
Right. I understand that, but at first I was very upset. I was getting ready to tear down Raleigh.
Quick question for both
and
of you.
I can tell you this. Raleigh did not want, this Miss Elmore calling again? Because I was very, if I didn't call, I was driving over there. I'm telling you. I was not going to put up with a lot of things. And I met a lot of nice people, good people in the Department of Corrections. And we developed some good relationships. And it's proof that I did because my son is home. And I have a lot of respect for some of the people that work in the Department of Corrections for what they do. And I think some of the guards need better training. But I can voice my opinion. I sit on the board here in North Carolina with Governor Cooper's Reentry Collaborative. So I advocate for the family. So I do have a voice.
Right.
So that's a good thing. So out of everything that happened, even though it started out as a tragedy, it's some good things that came out of that. My son is involved in good things, my daughter and I here in North Carolina, and I guess I'm going to stay here now. I've been here all these years.
We definitely appreciate your activism here, so we don't want you to go anywhere. But just out of curiosity, because you mentioned it earlier, Dean, I was just curious to hear from Ms. Elmore what her thoughts on this were, and I'm very interested in hearing from both of you what I'm about to ask on the second part of it. But you mentioned that a lot of people have that misconception that there are a lot of private prisons, and you said that as far as you knew, that I guess in New Jersey there are not that many. I don't know whether it is nationally, but I do know that is a concern that people have even when they talk about prison activism and what they want to do with the prisons. There's always a talk about how there's a lot of these prisons that are privately owned, and then the other conversation that we often hear about regarding prisons is the whole concept of the school-to-prison pipeline. And I was just wondering from both of you if you think that that's a very real thing, because we oftentimes hear about how our youth are almost being conditioned in some ways to be into the prison system as they get to be young adults.
I'll let the lady go first.
Yes, that is a huge concern of mine with this prisoner pipeline thing. I think that North Carolina does have a lot of private prisons. And being from Jersey, even though I'm from Jersey, I never really was involved in any prison stuff when I was there. But that is a concern of mine for our young black men and brown men caught up in this system in schools and end up going to prison. It's designed, and unfortunately, it's so hard when you're in this type of work It is so hard to make a dent, and a big enough dent, because sometimes people talk a lot and say, oh, yeah, I want to support you, I'm going to do this, and then you turn around and they're not there. So you put in all your effort, and you raise your voice, and you abdicate, and you make a difference, but at the end of the day, it's not a big enough difference, because if it was, we wouldn't have a lot of our young black men locked up in prison. So I don't know, but I'm just going to keep doing what I do until I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, true.
What were you going to add to that, James?
I was going to say, you know what, it starts early. They've changed the rules. I'm the son of an educator, God rest my mother's soul, and all of those teachers that taught with her, you know, they came from that old school lineage, like, we're going to check you here, and then we're going to let your parents know, and they're going to check you there. And if the rest of the village checks you, then so be it. They changed the rules of engagement within schools now. So you can't administer that discipline as a teacher. You have to make a referral, and then from the referral, they'll either diagnose your child with ADHD, or they'll give them one of those EIPs, separate them, and then something happens. In school, you got a whole bunch of kids. Something's going to happen, but the very small things now start off with suspension. It doesn't even start off with a progressive discipline type thing. They just start off, boom, you're suspended. Some schools have police officers in the school. They just arrest you. And now your parents have to come with you to court to find out that it was a little disagreement. One kid pushed the other kid, you know. And for those of us who come from the village mentality, it's like, well, why didn't the teacher just check them, take them to the principal's office, principal get on them, and then call us, and we'll handle that. But they don't do that anymore. Now your child has a 3 to 5 day suspension. If the cycle continues to repeat, then as they get older, what you're training a child to do by default, and they don't pay attention to it because they're not thinking about this whole thing logically, what you're training the child to do is to resist authority because they already expect a negative outcome. They haven't had a situation where you had to go out, like I had to do when I was in the 7th grade, and clean the entire parking lot with a broom and a dustpan, and it seemed like that day everybody decided to break bottles in the parking lot. You know, you can't do that anymore. You can't do those little things like, if this happens again, you're not going to clean the parking lot. But now we'll have a stronger sanction. They start out with the strongest sanctions there are, so then it becomes an expectation. If I get into any trouble, I'm going to get suspended. Some situations, it's easy to tell a child to walk away, but you remember the mind has not matured enough to say, you know what, this is not the best use of my time right now, so I'm going to go that way. So they get into a situation and they're suspended again, or sent to an alternative school. So now you have all the kids that have done something in one place. You've put them all together, and for some reason I think their expectation is, we're hoping that some of them fall by the wayside. So now they get older, a situation happens, but look at the record that's going to follow them. In a lot of states, they don't seal those juvenile records upon reaching the age of majority. So when you get arrested at 19, they're going to say, well, the defendant has 12 juvenile offenses, 3 were adjudicated. Right. And then now on top of this one offense, after the age of majority, you got to add the 12 from whatever day you had your first incident all the way up to now, and they ball it up together to make it seem like an individual is continuing the cycle of criminal behavior. So
a menace to society.
Right, and then here comes the second part of that. You got to get a lawyer. well, you know,